Luke is fond of the computer. He rarely goes into any other center because the teacher cannot take his outbursts that lead to injuries at times. Luke tries to get in front of Manny, who is playing nicely on the computer. Manny never gets to have his turn because Luke is always having a tantrum and the teacher lets him get his way. Manny kicks Luke in the shin. Manny runs away while Luke cries but continues to navigate through the computer. For me, this is an ideal teaching opportunity for Luke and the teacher. This incident could lead to a minor breakthrough for Luke and his behavior. Depending on Luke's age, he may be able to understand why Manny hit him, express how he feels after being hit, and maybe he and the teacher can figure out why it happened. I've personally found that children are more vulnerable and willing to listen when they become the victim rather than the aggressor. Luke has seemed to be the classroom bully. He has tantrums and outbursts. At times, he poses harm to himself and others. He has issues with self-control and displays antisocial behavior. The teacher seems to be ill-equipped to handle his behaviors. He is disengaged and seems to be comfortable with negatively ignoring Luke's obvious cry for help, attention, and need for structure. Luke's behavior and the impact it has on the classroom's physical environment, social climate, and learning is extremely negative. Luke's behavior has caused the other children to stay clear of him. No one, including the teacher, wants to deal with him or upset him, so they choose to leave him alone and essentially ignore him and his outbursts. Other children are not allowed to use the computer center, or they may be afraid to use it because the teacher allows Luke to monopolize it. This is unfair to the rest of the kids in the classroom, and they're essentially missing out on a very important center. Everyone seems to be adjusting to Luke's unfavorable behavior instead of dealing and solving the real issue. His behavior potentially begins to have a negative impact on the other kids. They will begin to see that Luke's behavior is tolerated and rewarded, and they could begin to display outbursts to get what they want. The teacher is stressed and probably finds it difficult to deal with Luke. In turn, her frustration and inadequacy may come out during the day with her other students in the classroom. First, Luke must realize and be taught that hitting and hurting himself or others is inappropriate and will not be tolerated in the classroom. He needs to learn that he is a part of the classroom and he must learn how to interact appropriately with his peers and other adults. The teacher may need to spend more individualized time with Luke, like when he is on the computer. He also needs to realize that he must share and take turns. This may give him a sense of belonging, being part of something, and feeling important or liked. Luke needs to be in more group activities. Having pairs on the computer will help with sharing. One-on-one time with the teacher is needed, even if it's for 3 to 5 minutes. Acknowledgement of his positive behaviors need to be reinforced. For some reason, Luke's needs are not being met. And he is a very smart child. He knows that his behavior is stressing the teacher, and therefore he gets his way. Appropriate behavior that I'd like to see from the teacher. She must engage. She has to learn how to handle children with behavioral issues. I would like to see her be more hands-on with Luke instead of being dismissive. She needs to find out about Luke, so maybe a meeting with the parents and director would help with insight on his behavior at home and how he interacts with his parents and other adults outside of the center. She needs to enforce her role as the adult and teacher. but remain unfazed by Luke's tantrum by overreacting. Luke is stressed because the teacher is stressed, and vice versa. She may have to change her tone with Luke and adjust her demeanor. There may be too much stimuli in the classroom. She can try to create a calmer and less stressed environment for him. She also should perform an assessment on Luke. She may find out, with the help of his support system, that he may just be bored and may need to be challenged more. She should also start to listen to him. She will begin to pick up on his cues and understand his needs better. She also has to be consistent. I can assume that it seems like when she is stressed, she ignores Luke and his behavior. She must work through that. It will benefit her, Luke, and the classroom. You have to document his behavior, especially if you see a pattern. Taking notes, video, journal, time sampling, etc. would do. Make special note of what triggers his behavior and what calms him or interests him. Make the director aware of the unsafe behavior for what you have to do and what you should not do in those instances. You should also request a meeting with the parent, especially if this is an ongoing thing with Luke. The teacher should change her mindset about Luke. Instead of thinking of him as a bad kid, think of him as a child that needs specialized attention or a child who's just misunderstood. Clear boundaries and rules need to be firmly established and defined and executed with him. This child may also need proactive intervention. It is important and necessary to find out the underlying reasons for his behavior. This will allow the teacher to eliminate some techniques that he may not respond to and help her focus on a more individualized plan for him. Luke's behavior must be nipped in the bud as soon as possible. He must learn that acting out, throwing tantrums, and bullying is not tolerated. This technique must be firm and consistent. Luke must stop being rewarded for his inappropriate behavior, and that is exactly what the teacher is doing when she lets him spend unlimited time on the computer after his tantrum. This is the wrong way to ignore behavior because he is learning that he can do and act anyway and still get what he wants. Computer time should only be granted to Luke for improved behavior, and the time increments to be increased based on how long he goes without an outburst and how long he's shown good behavior. But since he finds solace in the computer, I would not remove it completely from his schedule. I would have the teacher be more mindful of Luke and Manny. As a teacher, personally, I would have said to myself, Luke is probably going to try to get Manny off the computer. Let me keep an eye on them. Early intervention would have prevented this scenario from happening in the first place. Luke may be out of control because he doesn't feel like he has control. Allowing him to participate in his own learning and development is very important for children like Luke. Suggest things like, it's Manny's turn to use the computer, but you can help Miss Tiffany set the table for snack time, or you can go play with the box and see if you can build the biggest castle ever. Luke is probably used to being yelled at and scolded and told no. So some things as simple as lowering your voice, being more gentle yet firm, could have a positive impact. Rules and expectations must be clearly stated and repeated often, especially before, during, and after transition. Example, Luke and Manny, you two have been playing on the computer together very nicely. Thank you. But you have 5 minutes left. Then it's Ime and Ria's turn. You two will then go over to the Art Center to paint next. Do you both understand? Remember, in class rules, we say no a lot as teachers. So try something different in your approach. Instead of saying, no, we don't run, say, we walk, we listen, we share, we clean up, we take care of our school, we respect others. In the classroom, I would establish a classroom helper poster. Having a classroom helper chart begins to teach kids social skills, responsibility, and develops their sense of independence. The children should take part in choosing who does what, but it is the teacher's responsibility to remain fair by rotating names and making sure that no one feels left out. Establishing fair practices in the classroom for all the students will help alleviate fighting and disagreements and instill fairness and the importance of sharing with others. Allow the children to work together and promote a more comfortable and less stressed environment. I would implement time centers, especially at the computer station, and ensure that there is an appropriate number of students at each center at all times. The teacher must be in tune to her classroom and every student. It is possible for a teacher to give one-on-one with a few students each day, especially the one or two that you have determined need it the most. Sometimes just your presence is enough. I would try sitting in the middle of the room or on the rug during free play instead of behind your desk. Sit next to Luke and his partner at the computer, but face the rest of the classroom. Your physical presence should help keep Luke in line, and you are still able to monitor the rest of the classroom. Back to the scenario. I would make sure Luke was not physically hurt and examine his shin for bruising and marks, and complete an incident report for both boys. Once Luke is calm, I would call Manny over to the both of us. Even though we already know why Manny kicked Luke, I would still ask him why he did it, and explain that hitting to hurt others is not okay, and to call me over next time to help him. I would explain to Luke that he cannot force his way onto the computer, and that the computer belongs to everyone in the classroom. Therefore, everyone will be able to have a turn, including him. I would have both of them apologize to one another and to be specific, because they need to know why their actions were inappropriate and to understand why they need to be sorry. An example, this would be Manny. Luke, I'm sorry for kicking and hurting you. This would be Luke. Manny, I'm sorry for trying to push you off the computer. Next time, I will ask first. Luke needs to be told that since he did not ask Manny if he could join him or ask me if it was his turn, he will not be able to use the computer today. Both boys will be redirected to other activities. Since Luke is prone to outbursts, I would probably ask him if he would like to help me do a special big boy assignment, like take the attendance to the office or help me put the papers in everyone's cubby. If he does not respond positively, I will escort him to the cool-down area and make sure he does not pose harm to himself or others and document the incident. Throughout this time, I will be mindful to keep calm, cool, and collected, because both boys are learning from my reaction. I must keep a firm yet kind tone and be in complete control.